again to another interesting episode of Insights from Eximeters Legal. I remain your host, Esther, and today we will be discussing an aspect in company law which we refer to as corporate governance. Some episodes back, we had discussed certain matters relating to ESG imperatives, which are the environmental, social, and governance imperatives which behoves on businesses and companies under the law to make sure that investors make informed decisions about the investments they make. However, corporate governance is an aspect majorly under company law, which is a requirement for most businesses and for a business under the law that wants to be sustainable. So basically, today, what is corporate governance? We'll be discussing a couple of issues in terms of what corporate governance is, what are the benefits, and we'll also be looking into the issues of corporate governance under the digital age, considering, especially after the post-pandemic era in which a lot of businesses are now going virtual. How well do you maintain corporate governance when it comes to the digital age or digitalization? So first, what is corporate governance? The purpose of corporate governance is basically to maintain or facilitate effective entrepreneurial and prudent management that can deliver long-term success of a company. So it's a system by which companies are directed and controlled effectively by the board of directors, being responsible for the governance of the company, wherein the shareholders' role in the governance being to appoint the directors of the company and the auditors. But they have to be satisfied, that is the shareholders in this sense, have to be satisfied that the appropriate governance structure is properly put in place. So it's the responsibility of the board of directors of an ideal company under the law, under company law, to maintain the company's strategic aims, ensuring that the proper leadership structure is properly put in place, ensuring that the business management model is in accordance, to what is acceptable and will behove on profitability for such business, because they have shareholders to report to, especially when you are looking at limited liabilities companies that have shareholders, who have invested in the company. So even in any business where equity has been put in, those people who put in equity in, they are shareholders in that company. And duty behoves on the directors of the company to ensure that there is proper corporate governance, to ensure that the business is properly managed and strategically managed for profitability as well as proper reporting to the shareholders. So the purpose of corporate governance is to facilitate, as we said, effective entrepreneurial and prudent management to deliver long-term success for the company. So the board of directors are responsible solely for maintaining corporate governance in any organization. So what are the benefits of a good corporate governance? It encourages positive behavior, reducing the cost of capital, improving top-level decision-making, assuring internal controls, enabling better strategic planning, and attracting talented directors. So we're going to take some of these benefits in proper discussion one by one. So majorly, that system of direction and control that dictates how a board of a company, that's the board of directors of a company, governs and oversees the company structures, is majorly defined or referred to as the corporate governance. So it's altogether different from the daily operational management activities, of the company's executives or people in senior management. So it's a system of direction and control, and it dictates how the board of directors will govern and oversee the company's business. So it's a system of rules, policies, and practices, that would dictate how the company is being managed and the operations are being overseen by the board of directors. It basically includes certain principles like transparency, accountability, and security. So we're going to explain this one by one in detail. It should be noted that for a company to be sustainable and to achieve the goal in which the company is set out to achieve or being set up to achieve, a good corporate governance is required. Poor corporate governance, on the other hand, will lead to a company failing to achieve its stated goals, and it can lead to the collapse of the company and financial losses significantly to the shareholders. So basically, nobody wants to go into a business to make a loss. So it's very, very important, when a company is being set up under the law, that the board of directors being appointed, of course legally under the law as well, understands the essence of corporate governance. So the key principle of a corporate governance is shareholder primacy. Because majorly, the essence of the company being set up, apart from, yes, providing goods, services, whatever be the objective stated in the article and association of the company, or the memorandum of association of the company, majorly, the shareholders too want return on their investments. So one of the most important principles of corporate governance is the recognition of the shareholders. So first, recognizing the shareholders in the sense that they have invested equity, they have bought into the stocks of the company, and they want return on their investment, which is key. So the shareholder has a primacy in the sense that they want return on their investment. They are very important. And also, it should also be understood that the board of directors have a responsibility to the shareholders to ensure that the company is being properly run. So that's the essence, part of the essence of corporate governance principles. So the shareholders have to be given proper reporting by the board of directors. So the policy of allowing shareholders to elect the board of directors is very critical. And when they elect the board of directors, so you see in any annual general meeting of a proper company, limited liability company, you see the appointment of directors as part of the agenda, of the day, of the meeting. There are resolutions being given under the law, about how directors are being appointed, under the company law. So it's in the best interest of the shareholders to elect the board of directors who are able to run and manage the business properly. So the board's prime directive is to be always, in tandem with seeking the interest of the shareholders who appointed them, of course, legally within the framework of the law. So the board of directors hires and will oversee senior management, executives who will manage the day-to-day operations of the company. So we see in situations about the board, there are some board of directors that are executive directors, some are non-executive directors. So the non-executive directors are not involved in the day-to-day operations of the business, but the executive directors of the company are involved in the day-to-day operations of the business. So, in a sense, because the shareholders are the ones that appoint these members of the board of directors, they have a direct say, as it were, in how the company is being run. So part of the principles of corporate governance is shareholder primacy. Another principle of corporate governance is transparency. The interest of the shareholder, as we have noted earlier, is a major part of corporate governance. So shareholders, when they reach out, to the community, they don't necessarily hold an interest in the company. As it were, when they reach out to the members of the community, to benefit from the goods and services of the company. And let me just explain that properly. When shareholders reach out to members of the community who don't necessarily hold an interest in the company, but those who can benefit in the goods and services being produced or offered by the company, they have to be transparent. So also the board of directors as well. You have to be transparent in terms of encouraging the line of communication that will promote company transparency. So all members of the community, when we say community now, it will include the clients of the company and the customer base that are either directly or indirectly affected by the company, get a clear sense of what the company's goal is, what's the company's strategy, and what's the company trying to do in general. So that is why most of the time when you see in annual general meetings, the company will bring out its shareholders report. If you look at a typical company and you open the shareholders report, you see a lot of things, including even the financials, being clearly, stated transparently, even to members of the public. So that, yes, if you are even patronizing them, yes, this is the kind of company you want to deal with. They tell you about their missions, they tell you about their visions, they tell you about their employees, they tell you about the goals and the strategies the company has been deploying over the years, and issues about their financials, their statement of affairs. Also for the interest of as many too that want to eventually invest, in such company. And it's also part of the requirements of corporate governance to ensure that those reporting are properly made, in accordance with the rules of law, as it were, in whatever jurisdiction where the company operates, for the Corporate Affairs Commission or the Companies House or Companies Registry. These shareholders reports, annual general meeting reports, they have important factors or elements of the corporate governance, for transparency. So anyone, whether inside or outside the company, can choose to review and verify, the company's actions, via these reports. So this will definitely encourage trust and reliability about the company. So another principle of corporate governance is security. And when we say security, an increasingly important aspect of corporate governance, this is because shareholders and customers need to feel confident that their information is not being leaked to unauthorized users. And this is the duty also of the board of directors in terms of ensuring that there's proper corporate governance, being put in place in the company. So the company's proprietary processes in terms of the intellectual properties and trade secrets are secure. If there's a data breach, it can cause a lot of issues, as we see this, in certain companies that have even collapsed, maybe in the situation where there have been data leaks, and this weakens public trust in such companies. It can also drastically affect even the stock price, the share price of such companies in the capital market, so which can make investors lose interest. Then you see a situation where some shareholders are selling off their stocks in certain companies because definitely they've lost confidence, in the responsibility being behoved on the board of directors. And this is a sign of poor corporate governance, definitely. So security is very important as an element or key principle of corporate governance. There are certain consequences before we go to the benefits of good corporate governance. There are certain consequences, of a bad or poor corporate governance. Like we have reiterated, one of the biggest purposes of corporate governance is to set up a system of rules, policies, and practices for a company. So if there are no systems of rules, then there will be no accountability, as it were. The company is responsible both to shareholders, to the customers, and also to the government of the place where it's operating. So it's not just an island of its own. The company is not operating in isolation. So whatever it does, it should know it has a ripple effect on certain other people or persons or agencies, whether directly or indirectly. And this is what most people on the board of major companies or even companies coming up need to understand to build effective corporate governance system, for the companies. So each major piece of the shareholders, the board of directors, the executive management team, and the company's employees, they are responsible to one another, making them all accountable to each other. And part of this accountability, is also the financial reporting, ensuring that the board regularly provides financial reporting. And where this is not done, like we have explained earlier, it reflects a lack of transparency. So a poor corporate governance, will collapse a system. We've seen that, there was this case of Enron in the US a couple of years ago. And I recall that it was an issue in which the executives, the executive directors of the company, they actually engaged certain shady tactics, in employing certain accounting methods that were not in tandem with the right methods they should use to cover up certain facts of the company. So there was no transparency in the financials, and it led to the collapse of that company. It was a worldwide, globally it was globally in the news, and it actually brought down that corporation because there were erroneous figures, and at the end of the day, so many things were concealed, even with tax and all that, because there was poor corporate governance, and this was part of the failure of the board of directors of the company. So it's very, very important, and that proper accounting methods are being put in place, the internal controls are being properly put in place, the tax measures are being put in place, the company's debts and liabilities are being, properly opened, and managed to ensure that shareholders are not kept in the dark, about what is going on, and also ensuring that the proper structures are being put in place for the business to effectively grow. So we will go into the benefits, as we said, of a good corporate governance, and, certain examples. We've mentioned them earlier. We said the first, encouraging good behavior. So encouraging a good or positive behavior. So when there are proper delineated policies and processes, in a company, the board of directors and the executive management, they maintain the compliance culture, in accordance with proper governance, corporate governance structures, in line with the vision and mission of the company. So, and when there are proper corporate governance structures, systems, policies put into them properly, even the employees of the companies are encouraged to behave positively because everything is properly delineated, aligned. This is the way we do this. These are policies and structures. And everybody knows it's clear. Nobody is in the dark about what is what. And definitely if there's a good corporate governance structure, it will reduce the cost of capital because even as well now we see in major countries of the world, the environment is so volatile. If it is not war in certain parts, or there are instabilities in certain parts, there are austerity in certain parts, the foreign exchange, is fluctuating. So we see a lot of the environment, the economic environment, most of the time in most countries now are volatile. So there's a need for companies, the board of directors of the company, to brace up in any corporation to have a good proper corporate governance. And when there's a proper corporate governance, then this will reduce the cost of capital. So, because certain steps that will be taken to ensure that the company is not just spending unnecessarily on frivolities, and also they can be seen to be stable, reliable, and be able to mitigate certain potential risk. So they can get to borrow funds even at a lower rate, instead of borrowing funds at a higher rate. So most of the time, or even if there are proper corporate governance structures put in place, the company can choose to say, yes, we're not going to take funds now or borrow funds now. Okay, maybe we get certain investors to come in and bring in equity instead of loan. These are different things that the board of directors and the executive management of the company, can get to do if there are proper corporate governance structures in place. Because if the company too is highly geared, it could lead to the collapse of the company. So when we say highly geared, it actually means the debts or liabilities are more than the assets of the company. So also, when part of the benefits of a proper corporate governance will be improving top-level decision making. So where the board of directors are on top of their game, with proper or good corporate governance issues, then they are able to create a sustainable environment and make proper decisions, even in tough economic climates, for their company, and which is very, very important. Another advantage or benefit of good corporate governance in any company is it assures internal controls. So when you implement corporate governance correctly across board in an organization, the board of directors will be certain that an adequate and effective control environment is in effect with the level of assurance associated with each important component of governance. So the board of directors will be better positioned to take action when the internal controls, are being properly complied with. So there are proper reportings in terms of audits, in terms of tax, in terms of how even the company is being run internally, in terms of how employees relate, behave, even with the customers or the clients. And these are very, very important. So another advantage or benefit also of a good corporate governance structure is it enables better strategic planning. So with more rapid access to information now, when there is proper corporate governance, the board of directors of the company are able to formulate more successful strategies, and this is very, very important. They're able to allocate resources effectively, for the stronger good of the company, leveraging on technology, depending on whether it's a manufacturing company or a service-oriented company, in terms of, and they're able to make sure that their strategic plans, are properly in tandem and is being reviewed, from time to time. So these are part of the benefits of having a proper corporate governance in place. And also, it's another advantage is to attract talented directors. So you see, even on the board of directors of so many companies, you see people with wide range of experience. So in some companies, you have people that are lawyers, even medical doctors, different people from different spheres, technologists, data management people, businessmen, on the board of directors of certain companies, because they have a wide range of people and they can attract a pool of talents to ensure, that there's an overall good, for the company's goals. So there's a comprehensive assessment of the overall sustainability of an organization when you pull in these talents, to come on the board. So the new talents are available to be able to bring in sustainability for such organizations, and so that they can adapt to the evolving conditions of the market. Somebody who is a lawyer will have something to bring into the table, even for a manufacturing outfit. So it doesn't really need to know how to produce soap, for instance, to be on the board of directors of a soap-making factory or industry. So it's with the proper corporate governance system put in place, by the board of directors of the company, you're able to attract talented directors, talented individuals as directors. So having said all this, now post-COVID, we realized that even these days, a lot of board meetings are now being held virtually. Before, everybody has to come in and, they come to the meeting, call meetings. But these days, you can hold board of directors meetings to strategize, to put in place certain things, policies, systems, and structures on how the company is going to be effectively managed, virtually. So you see a lot even going on via Zoom meetings and all that. And in certain instances now, because of the evolutions in the market, maybe due to the environment, due to the things that have happened over time, especially with COVID-19, we see certain softwares now being made. There's one software they call the board management software, which enables organizations to achieve the best-in-class governance. So even such can even help the companies to build their corporate governance, digitally, as it were. So that is very, very key and important. So how well can you put in place a proper corporate governance in a digital age? So there are digital governance systems that are now being put in place. So it's an evolving area. So we've seen ESG, environmental, social, and governance imperatives coming up. And I believe that very soon too, with digitalization of so many things coming up, digital governance will become an aspect. So we should watch out for that. So adapting to the digital age will require more than just the participation of the employees or the executive management or the physical presence of the board of directors. So for organizations have to ensure that they evolve, with the age, with the technology, as it were, globally. So organizations have to arm themselves with the new capabilities. This may require going out of their comfort zone, trying new things, they're not so familiar with. Virtual meetings, digital meetings, they can be productive. And we are seeing that now. A lot of organizations are coming into the Zoom space, coming into the Microsoft Teams space. So you can be in your house and be having a meeting with the other members of the board of directors, for the effective running and management of the company. And these are the realities, that we find ourselves now. You see a lot of people now, maybe 3, 4, 5 out of 10 people are now working from home, and more so effectively. So companies have to be able to, organizations, as we have to be able to know that incorporating the digital governance into corporate governance systems for the board of directors' effectiveness is something that has to evolve and has to be entrenched, these days. So digital meetings can be very productive, efficient, and convenient. So, and if properly managed, it will not lead to frustration of any member of the board of directors. Rather, it will even make them more productive and effective. And they can make their presentations and get implementations done, eventually, yes, in physical spaces. However, so many things are being sorted out digitally. So a functional crew, a digital governance team, will remotely manage or rely on digital governance, to collaborate with every member of the team, with every member of the board of directors. So the organizations, the team, will need to establish that digital governance into their systems. So a lot is now going on in the digital space for companies to be able to understand that very soon, board of directors, there will be some that could be called digital directors. So we are heading there, even legally, in the company law space, because of the evolving technologies around us. So basically, and this will be a very interesting aspect to see. And I believe that, yes, a lot, even in developed countries, are now looking into this, to have digital directors that will not even come in for physical meets. And eventually, yes, things are being properly run also in such companies, as long as the proper corporate governance is being built for the good of the organization, for the good of the shareholders, for the good of the employees, and the customers, the clients, the society at large. So today we have looked into corporate governance, which is an aspect under company law, and we have looked into the essence and the importance of corporate governance, what it entails, and how well board of directors are expected to ensure that proper corporate governance is being maintained, for effective management and running of the organization. Also, we've also looked into, the implication of corporate governance in the digital world. So, in a sense in which now, post-pandemic, based on evolution of technology, we might be having digital directors, a lot going on digitally in the virtual space, in the online space, where directors don't have to have a physical meet, and yet they can ensure they make policies, entrench proper corporate governance, even digitally, for the effectiveness of the organization. So thank you very much for being with us today. We believe you've garnered one or two things, in today's discourse on corporate governance, and thank you for always participating with us. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to send in your questions to us on our Facebook page, on our YouTube page, and also on Instagram. We'll be willing to answer your questions as much as we can. Until we come your way again in another episode, say thank you very much and God bless.